Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be kicking things off at PGC London Monday morning. Lovely to be here. For me, it's great timing, actually, to be here because last week, sort of late last week, we dropped our annual State of Mobile report. So this is the biggest report we do during the year, and it's great timing for me just to be able to share a few of the findings from that with you, some of the highlights. Most of the things I cover are from State of Mobile, so do put it on your action list, get a copy of State of Mobile. But a little bit of analysis is slightly deeper, and if you're interested and you want to follow up on that, then do let me know. I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to do some macro level trends, sort of outside of gaming, just what's the whole mobile world look like. And then I'm going to spend quite a lot of time looking at the top 100 games from 2019. At App Annie, we've done a lot of work recently on categorization and analysis by category, so we'll drill into that a bit. Also take a bit of time to look at new releases in 2019, particularly ARPU performance of those new releases in 2019. We'll look a bit across the whole spectrum, so the big games compared to the smaller ones. I want to say a word or two about Gen Z and what we're seeing, some early trends coming out of Gen Z. A couple of top charts, and that'll probably cover us on time. What I'm not going to do is talk to you about App Annie. I'm going to make an assumption which hopefully isn't arrogant, or you don't see as arrogant, that most of you know who we are and what we do. If you don't, or if you want further information, we'd be delighted to help. We have a booth on the second floor, so do stop by and see the guys if you get a chance. Right, so I'm hoping that you're all going to be able to find a screen you can see most of this content on anyway, because it's a little bit small as I'm looking at it now. But some top-level numbers here. So downloads, 200 billion downloads. We've gone past that mark. First time ever. I'll talk a little bit about downloads in a minute. The spend through the App Store, 120 billion. Now, around 3/4 of that comes from gaming. So that's where we are. We're at 85, 86 million transacted through the app stores purely on gaming. So that's where we are. Increase in time spent, about 10% increase year on year. So across the world, we're spending 3 hours, 40 minutes, something like that, per day in app. Varies wildly by region. In the UK here, for instance, it's about 2.5 hours. You look at Indonesia, as is always an outlier or a slight extreme, more than 4.5 hours per day per individual smartphone user in Indonesia, and it's just entirely mobile first. They completely started digital on mobile there. If you're planning an IPO, good luck with that. Times X on valuations for mobile first companies, so it's a good choice. And then that 60% number there is the Gen Z thing that I'll loop back to later. Basically, Gen Z are so much more engaged in mobile than previous generations, but there are some questions about their gaming behavior, which we'll look at. Okay, so that's that. Some macro trends, downloads. I think we're at a point where we can almost see peak downloads. If you look at US over the last 3 years, it's almost flat now. It's leveled out, and you even see that the red line here is global, and then on a different scale, all the other numbers are countries. The black line is China, so you can see China's flattening. The grey line is India. India, where we saw this crazy growth, where India became a bigger download market than the US in 2018. That's flattening as well. So whether we're going to peak at 220, 230, something like that, don't know, but definitely peak downloads is in sight now. Whereas fortunately for everyone in the gaming industry, no sign of spend declining or flattening out rather. So you can see this growth line just continuing up and to the right, and we've effectively more than doubled, 2.1, more than doubled the spend since 2016. And again, you see it's across all markets. China had a big spike back in 2017, but it's still growing really, really quickly. And you see other markets, US, pretty much all markets continue to grow on spend. And again, 3/4 of that is mobile gaming. And just to put it in context, where mobile gaming is compared to other platforms, we had it back in 2013 when mobile was pretty much equivalent to handheld and pretty much equivalent to console. They were all about the same. We then had this crossover point in 2017 when mobile became bigger than all the others, and you see it continuing on, and that's only going to continue. You look at the games we've seen move over from console into mobile in 2019, Mario Kart, Call of Duty, big releases. It just continues to go on like that. So that's going to continue that trend. So that's the macro level stuff. Now the next 3 slides are what I talked about, as I said I'm going to talk about, which is these top 100 games. So what we've done is look at top 100 and different parameters. We'll look at downloads, and then we'll look at time spent, and then we'll look at money spent. So there's going to be 3 of these slides. It's worth just explaining. What we've done at App Annie is, as I said, go really into game categorization. And we've split, as you can see in the core bit, in the center of the circle rather, by core, casual. We actually have casino as well, but there's no casino on there, which tells us there's no casino games in the top 100 games by downloads for 2019. And then around the outside, you can see we start to get a bit more fragmented. So arcade, puzzle, and casual, and action, shooter, other things on core. So it's a really clear message here. Downloads is driven by casual. It's only 18% core. And when you look at it, almost half of all downloads within those top 100 games comes from arcade. And what we're talking about there, the top 1, Subway Surfers, amazingly still Subway Surfers, but a big change below that. Real standout is the team from Good Job Games. So the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th on there are Color Bump, Run Race, Fun Race, all titles from Good Job Games. So you can see that's what's driving the download picture for top 100. Within core, it's only 18%. The biggest game there for downloads in 2019 was Free Fire. So just have that in mind, have that picture there so you see the red. We're going to flip now and look at time spent. So you see it suddenly looks really different. More than half, so 55% of time spent is in those core games. And you can see it really is driven by action. Action games, and the titles, won't be a surprise to you. That's very battle royale driven. So PUBG and Game for Peace in China and Free Fire, the sort of top 3 standouts that are really driving engagement there. And I think, it's not surprising. Obviously, core games are more engaging. You're investing in it. You're spending more time in it. But I think there's more underlying changes that are driving that. You see the improvements in hardware and screens, the ability to port more core games into mobile. I think we took a definite jump in that in 2019 that we're expecting to see continue in 2020. And just on a really anecdotal note, I commute in to London when I'm working in London on the train, and it's just always interesting to watch what games people are playing on the train. The number of people I saw playing Call of Duty recently, Call of Duty Mobile on a train. I've not seen that with a core game before. And the bandwidth's better with 5G this year. Maybe that's going to have a significant shift on that as well. So there's definitely some interesting trends on here. So that's the big thing. You can see casino just makes an appearance here, 1%. Which is Coin Master, and we'll talk about Coin Master later. That was a real standout game for 2019. And on casual side, where the time is spent is puzzle. The biggest time spent puzzle game in 2019 was Annie Pop, and behind that was Candy Crush. So no surprise on that. So keep that in your mind. That's the time spent. Let's move on and look at the consumer spend. So you can see how that's flicked right round now. So the vast majority, you can see, was at 76% of all the spend is going in those core games. So much, and obviously, casual games, a lot of those are hyper casual, monetizing through advertising. So yeah, that does change the model, of course. But what's interesting as well is you see it's RPG. When we go back here and we looked at the time spent, it was action. But when you look at what's monetizing, it's RPG, and it's driven by the big Asian games. So Fate Grand Order, it is top, but behind that, Honor of Kings, Monster Strike, Lineage, these huge RPG games that continue to monetize. And I think Fate Grand Order is just incredible. They released the sort of season release in 2019 was Final Singularity, and it pushed their revenues up to the 2nd highest peak Fate Grand Order's ever had. And that's a game that's been out since 2015. So I think in terms of longevity, it's really impressive. So that's that. And then on the puzzle side, Candy Crush was the top monetizing, but Homescapes, Gardenscapes were in there. One interesting thing that caught my eye was Roblox. So actually Roblox was the 4th biggest monetizing casual game in 2019. And you think about the demographic for Roblox, that's really kind of interesting where that's going to go. And then Coin Master. Coin Master was nowhere on downloads, not on the charts, 1% on time of time spent, more like 6% when it comes to monetizing. That's really heavily driven by Coin Master. They had an outstanding year. So that's the top 100 games and a sort of category analysis, and we're doing more of that. On the casual side, I didn't really talk about advertising revenues, but this just caught our eye when we were looking at the sort of advertising side and the shift in advertising. This is actually some analysis from MoPub, but what it's saying is the amount of big consumer brand advertising that's going to gaming companies has shifted a lot in 2019. The 19% increase, so 74 cents in every dollar that these consumer brands are spending through MoPub is going on gaming ads within games. So there's definitely, you put that together with the growth in hyper-casual and the amount of monetization, and just to be clear, that the ad revenue spend, our estimate for 2019 is 240 billion. And that's growing 26%. So it's actually the ad revenues are growing faster. They're both growing quickly, but growing faster than the store purchases. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about 2019 releases. Sorry, this slide looks confusing. I'll explain it. It's not as confusing as it looks, but we wanted to look at ARPU. So we looked by country and said, we'll take the top 20 games by consumer spend in each country, and then we'll just put them on a scale for ARPU. So you can see this market here is China. This game up here is Singing Things. It's not a game, I know, but these 3 are RPG games from Japan. Sorry, not from China. So you get a sense of those are the top 3. And then we ranked the countries. So you've got South Korea, then Japan. But if you want to know what game, if you want to look at one game for ARPU in 2019, it was completely clear. It was Perfect World. Perfect World absolutely smashed it in terms of ARPU. So much so that I had to change this chart. These are countries ranked in order: South Korea, Japan. It should be China then, but if we put China in there with Perfect World monetizing, everything else on an index scale just disappears so far down. So it's a really amazing story for that. But if you look outside of Perfect World and you look country by country, you see South Korea here, top ARPU was Rohan. I talked about Japan with the big 3 RPG games there. But what's interesting, China would be 3rd, but 4th is actually Canada. And quite an outlier on here. The biggest ARPU game in Canada is Game of Thrones slots. I don't know quite what the underlying cause of that is, but it's a real standout. And I suppose that the message here is it is still very regional. And you can look across one more and you see UK, and actually this standout here is Football Manager. We still love playing Football Manager and are very willing to spend on it. But the other thing perhaps to note on there is US. US is out in, not on the chart it's 5th, but would actually be 6th with China. And in 2019, the biggest new release that monetized at ARPU level was a game called C Game, Mega Carrier. So it's kind of, definitely some missed opportunities, I think, within there in the US market. Or maybe it also looks to something that it's harder to break in. The established games there have got a pretty strong hold. So that's the ARPU perspective. I wanted to look at the split between these mega games, the really high 100 million plus in a year monetizing games, and then ones further down the scale. And the story is kind of everybody wins, which is good. You can see each of these categories. So this is the under 5 million. So we had 359 games in 2018, 372 in 2019. This is the under 10, right out to the end is the over 100. So you see everyone's winning. The total number of games is going up. Each of those categories is going up. But the reality is it is top-end weighted. You look at the 100 million plus games back in 2017, there was 88. Last year, there was 140. So that's 60% increase, pretty much, in the number of games at the 100 million plus level. And we're not seeing those same rates of growth further down. So steady growth, but really where the big action is in those mega games at the top end. Okay, a quick word on Gen Z. Don't want to spend too long on this, but if you're targeting Gen Z, this is important to be aware of. Then they spend more time in non-gaming apps. And so this is 16 to 25 demographic. So it's sessions per user here, and then total time spent on the x-axis. And this is non-gaming. So you can see pretty much the same amount of time, but more sessions, so slightly shorter, more frequent sessions in non-gaming. But in games, you can see they're spending less time in mobile games than the 25 plus, both in terms of sessions and significantly in terms of time. Now, there's a hypothesis that they're spending more time on console, which may be the case, but definitely within mobile, the proportion of time available is bigger than the older demographic, but gaming's share is much less than that. And so what we did was look at what games, let me just build this, what games perform best for Gen Z. So it's another one of these charts. And actually what we did was look at the top games by monthly active user in different markets, and then looked at which game over-indexes. So we looked at the audience, the usage figures, and looked at which games are strongest in Gen Z. And the logos across the top are the top performing game in terms of, or the most over-indexed to Gen Z in each of those markets. And it's really clear, 7 out of 10 of those are Supercell titles. So what is it about Brawl Stars, Clash of Clans, Clash Royale that makes them so effective in this market? And when you look at it, a lot of it is about the social side. It's about the clan. It's about the connection. There's a stat that more than 50% of Gen Z males use games as a way of connecting with friends and talking with friends. So if you're looking at that market, it's really so stark. I mean, probably the only exception, there's sort of a slight exception in Asian market, in Japan there, and Aquapark for some reason in the UK. I don't know why Aquapark was the biggest over-index. Maybe it was just the timing we will look at H1 2019. But if you're looking at Gen Z, there's a real important point to take away there, I think. Okay, so I think that was pretty much it. I wanted to close with a couple of just comments on download, on charts, top charts. We love top charts at App Annie. So there's actually a new widget going on our website soon where you'll be able to pull top charts yourself direct from our website. So if you want to do a quick LinkedIn post, if you're in any of those charts, then that's going to be a nice feature we have. So you can see downloads worldwide, Free Fire and PUBG, the two big battle royales, and then it's all casual. We talked about that, Subway Surfers, Colour Bump, etc. On the UK, slightly different, and it is regional. Coin Master was a big standout in the UK. And then if we look at, there we are, last two quick slides, and these are available in the report, so do go and get them. The breakout games, so this is downloads. So this is the most increase in downloads in 2019. And again, I just have to say to the guys at Good Job Games, an incredible year. You see the Colour Bump, the purple logo here, Fun Race, this logo here, and Run Race. It's just across. I think there was only China where they didn't get into top 5 of downloads in terms of breakouts in 2019. And finally, on consumer spend, you see still a lot of the same names, or a lot of games slightly coming back. So this is biggest increase. So you can be Brawl Stars, obviously there, but Clash of Clans, Empire and Puzzles, a lot of games that have been around for a while coming back. And I think that would be one of my takeaways really for this is, you see that definitely a shift to big games in 2019. More of continuing success for those bigger games. It's harder to break in. There is scope, but maybe not as much. You see somebody like Good Job as a proof point you can get in there. You see games like Coin Master, which have been around for a long time, but found the right formula for user acquisition in 2019. But overall, as a closing comment, I think as we go back to that consumer spend number, 86 billion. And we're growing at 20% year on year. So challenge for everyone out there in the gaming industry, by the time I'm here next year, we should be 100 billion plus. So there you go, that's your 2020 objective, make this a 100 billion plus market. Think we can do that? I think we can do that. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Obviously, that report's full of cracking stuff, so you've got to get the report now. Is that a free report, or is that
It is a free report.
It's a free report. Download it now.
We even created our own website, so stateofmobile2020.com. Go there. You don't even have to go through our corporate website. You can go straight to it. So.
Fair enough. Okay. Does anyone have a quick question for Paul? We do have one at the front. Where's my lovely assistant? Can you bring up a hand mic quickly for one quick question? I'm sure we only got time for one, but the app are upstairs, so I'm sure you can go and ask for loads of data. The microphone's coming from the back. It's on its way. There we go, just the front. Okay, one quick question.
Yeah, I was interested in. I think I heard you say that total ad revenue in games was 240 billion, and the total sales in mobile games was 120 billion. What percentage, if you know, of that 240 billion was spent by games? Because I'm interested in are we spending more on advertising than we're making in revenue?
Yeah. I don't know is the honest answer for that straight off, but I'll take a look at it and come back to you.
Fantastic. Good question. Okay, thanks again for Paul Barnes. That's fantastic. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Cool.